Welcome to Fantasy Fanline.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Fantasy Fanline, the fantasy football call-in show, putting you on the air with industry experts each and every week. I'm your host, Greg Scalera, here as always with my co-host, Sanchi Value. Sanch, happy week 10. How you doing?
Happy week 10, bro. I'm doing really good. Hope you're doing the same. Ready for some more football tomorrow. Get the first Germany game ever tomorrow morning.
Oh, yeah.
I believe.
It's a big week for the international relations of the National Football League. Did you watch Falcons versus Panthers on Thursday Night Football? Because I did not.
I put a little bet in because there was no way in hell I was watching that without something on the line, and I was watching hockey instead. I'm sorry. I just couldn't do it, and I'm glad I didn't because I know I skimmed through some of the highlights, if you want to call them that, and Marcus Mariota sucks, huh?
I read the box score, and you need to bet to make it through bad games. I need to drink, so neither of those are healthy coping mechanisms. It's easier just to not watch it, right? I mean, given the pedigree, of Thursday Night Football games so far this year, I took one look at the names of the teams on that schedule, and I noped right out of it. But our guest, who I'm going to bring in a few minutes, had a great tweet during that game. He mentioned that he was enjoying every snap of it while we still have football because, I mean, he's right. Like, in a few months, we're going to be dreaming of Falcons versus Panthers on Thursday Night Football when we're in the offseason, like, just desperate for news out of, gossip and things about potential trades and things, and we're jonesing for football. And right now, we're so spoiled. We're like, Falcons, Panthers on primetime. No, thank you. But that's where we are.
If my Devils weren't playing, I'd probably watch it. I would need quite a few beers, but I'd watch it. But yeah,
you're going to see them later today. We were just talking before the show started. So if any of our listeners out there are also going to be at the Devils game, go find your boy Sanchi Value. It's a small stadium, right? Hockey arenas. You could pick a guy out of the crowd. Prudential Center. Yeah.
But if you tweet at me and want to buy me a beer, I'll make sure to come meet up.
He'll be the guy in the Devil's hat. Those of you watching on YouTube can see that right now. Yeah. Should be the only one there in that hat. So be sure to pick him out. Sancho, I had somebody ask me, and this question comes up a lot, but I was talking to somebody in the industry, and they went and looked at our page and saw the name of my co-host. And they had a lot of people ask about your name, but this was the first time anybody asked me this specific question. They wanted to know if it was first name Sanchi, last name Value, or if Sanchi was like a descriptive adjective of value. Like, this value is particularly Sanchi, Can you clear this up for us?
It's a mystery. It's whatever you want it to
be. Open to interpretation, like all great art. Well, there you have it, folks. Sanchi is a masterpiece, and he is open to the interpretation of the viewer. For those of you joining us for the first time, I promise we're a fantasy football show, and we'll get to it in just a minute. We're live every Saturday afternoon at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, or Twitter. You can find us on any of those platforms or the next day on your favorite podcast platform if you can't join us live on Saturdays. Wherever you find us, listen to us, watch us, please make sure you subscribe and leave a like on the stream. Tell a friend. Really helps us out a lot. You can follow us on all social platforms at Fantasy Fanline, and you can find us individually on Twitter, if you dare. I am at the Greg Scalera. Sanchi is at Sanchi Value. Tweet at him, buy him a beer at the Devils game today. That's the best way to get in touch with him. This show is brought to you by...
Or you can pay for our blue check mark if you want.
Yeah, man, I was just going to get into that. This show is brought to you by our small but quickly growing community of Patreon supporters. You could join them. What do we say? The Fantasy Fanatics is what we're rolling with tentatively?
Fanline Fanatics? I think that
Fanline Fanatics? One. I think that makes more sense. You could join the Fanline Fanatics at patreon.com/fantasyfanline. You can start supporting us for as low as $1 per month, but if anyone wants to donate exactly, $8 a month for our blue check mark, I promise we will shout you out on every show specifically as the sponsor of our verification badge. Can you even call it that anymore if you're paying for it? Like, I haven't done any research into that system. It seems like a mess. And I don't want to get into it because I know people feel very strongly on both sides of the aisle about it. But it seems like if you're paying for a verification, yeah, it kind of did. And
but the thing is, it brings you to the top of the algorithm, and you'll get more people looking at your stuff. And for the industry we're in, I mean, I guess $8 ain't that bad to get on the top of the list.
So it's basically paid SEO, search engine optimization. I guess it's no different than putting money into Google advertising and things like that.
Instagram ads. Like you want to be on the top of the algorithm. You want people to see your stuff. You better give Elon Musk $8 a month. Like he needs it.
Well, I will say that I'm proud of Twitter for the moment that this new system went in place. Half of the population of the blue check marks changed their name to Elon Musk. That is the response I was expecting out of not just Twitter, but humanity. Like that makes me proud to be a human. He's ultimate troll response
on all of them. What a guy!
Well, he bought the platform for free speech, so here we are, Banhammer. Here we are. 3 days into his reign, Elon Musk. Oh, we've gone off the rails here. The point is that you can find us on patreon.com/fantasyfanline. You can get exclusive perks for supporting our independent show, and you could join the likes of Alan Wu and Josh Green, who is our current supporter community. Thank you both. We appreciate you so much. Josh did inform me that I met the conditions of our bet to his satisfaction last week on our live show. If you missed it, you can go watch the replay on our YouTube channel. I had to do something very specific on our show because I lost in my head-to-head matchup to him, and I think I stepped up and fulfilled it. So we will be live for the next hour here. If you are joining us to ask a question about your league, we're here to answer those. Anything and everything from start-sit questions, trades, rest of season values. You can call into our show at 618-FANLINE at any point to ask a question. Get that phone number up here for you. And we'll be live with our guest for about the next 53 minutes. I'm going to bring him in without further ado. He is back for the second time this year, John LanFranca. He's an NFL handicapper. He's a writer-contributor for Action Network. He's a podcaster for Fantasy Sharks. He's a guest on our show today, Johnny L Football on Twitter. John, welcome back.
Thanks for having me back, and I was enjoying your intro so much. I am now a part of the Fanline Fanatics, just so you guys know, a little surprise for you here already.
Okay.
Dude, welcome to our community of supporters, John LanFranca. And then there were 3. That's great, man. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. I really like your guys' show, and I wanted to show my support, and obviously I love coming on. So
appreciate that, man. Do you have a Patreon of your own? Do you do any sort of support sourcing? I know that you actually work for some well-established companies that I don't, we've never gotten into if you're a freelancer for them, if you're paid, if you're a volunteer. But what do you do? How do you support yourself and your kind of career path here in fantasy football?
So I am a paid freelancer for Action now, and actually I do have a Patreon. I was really starting it last year in 2021, offering like personalized fantasy football services plus handicapping. So I would Zoom with you during your draft if you needed me to. All the questions throughout the year, no matter what kind of league you had. This year I backed off a little bit. I got a few subscribers. I just list all my picks there, what I'm kind of thinking, or any like DFS advice that you may need specifically for your contest. But I backed off because I'm going to build my Action following a little bit more, and then maybe get back to the Patreon next year or the year after.
Well, anytime you want to come on our show and give it a plug when you're rebooting that, we're happy to tell people why they should come support you, because you're one of our favorite guests, one of our most frequent guests at this point. And before we get any further, we do have a question coming in from YouTube. I don't know if anyone knows this off the top of their head. Do y'all think Kyler plays tomorrow?
Quick question. Is it double XP weekend in Call of Duty, or is it normal XP? Because if it's double XP, probably not. If it's normal XP, he'll probably play.
I'll have to Google that. Last I heard, he was trending towards a game time decision. Is that still true? I'm bringing up my reports here.
I think that's I know that he had as well.
Yeah, he had kind of an unexpected injury that popped up during the week. I think it was a hamstring. You don't really like hamstring injuries that pop up during practice weeks. Not something. I mean, sometimes when it comes up during a game, you give them a few days to work through it. But when they pop up late in the week with a hamstring injury, I am inclined to bet that he will not play. John, have you heard anything more definitive than that either way?
No, I haven't. Now I'm just racking my brain and off Kyler's history when his movement skills have been limited at all. Like be looking for another option for a quarterback. I mean, if it's a game time decision, I'm probably going in with a backup plan. Actually, I just wrote up right before I came on the show one of my best bets of the week in the under in the Cards Rams game. So I'm not feeling many points in that game. So have a backup plan if you are considering starting Kyler at all.
Well, that is for sure. I mean, certainly in a one quarterback league, you're going to want to grab someone that you're prepared to stream because they have the 4:00 afternoon slot, I believe, against the Rams. That's a tough defense already. And
Stafford's
if you miss,
probably not playing either.
Oh, that's going to be a fun game.
Yeah,
so,
I'm okay
if you wait it out and you miss the 1:00 wave of options and Kyler goes down for the 4:00, you just make sure that you're not caught unprepared. If there's a 1:00 option that you're able to stream that you feel good about, I would probably roll him out over Kyler, who hasn't been like prolific anyway. I mean, he's still getting the job done. He's still a solid quarterback for fantasy football purposes, but he's maybe not the, high-end game-winning option that you thought you were drafting. That whole Cardinals offense has been a bit of a mess, and we're going to talk about some of them later. I know we have a mailbag question about James Conner, but does this, if Kyler sits, any major
Jimmy G
changes?
for the night game, maybe. If you want to play Kyler, you could scoop up Garoppolo. Not like that's sexy or anything, but like.
Yeah, they got the Chargers at 8:20, and I do expect the 49ers to run a lot in that matchup and not necessarily lean on Jimmy G's arm because the Chargers defense is surprisingly bad against the run this year, and the 49ers run game, as we know, is always shockingly great. So, that's an avenue you can take. You're certainly not streaming,
Jared
Justin
Goff
Herbert
at one.
off waivers.
Jared Goff at 1 against the Bears. I think that there'll be a lot of points in that game.
Okay, so let's pose this to both of you and John as well. Jared Goff, you pick him up off waivers. You still don't know about Kyler as we head into 1:00. Are you starting Goff?
I like the matchup. I probably would.
I think I would too, John.
Yeah, I don't like golf ever outdoors, but again, if you tell me Kyler has to stay in the pocket, isn't running, I'm looking any way possible to bench him.
Okay. I'm looking who else you can maybe stream. Geno Smith is long gone at this point. Maybe Trevor Lawrence against the Chiefs. Daniel Jones against the Texans. Are you taking both those guys over a possibly inactive Kyler?
I actually like Lawrence in that matchup versus the Chiefs. He's going to have to throw a lot. And Jones against the Texans, if Kyler's not mobile, but Jones still has his legs, and that's fantasy gold. He can always give you a big game, especially in a nice matchup with like Houston.
Okay. So there you go. So if you can get access to one of those options, Albert, we would recommend picking them up. And if there's no news about Kyler by that afternoon, go ahead and plug him into your lineup. If Kyler's playing, though, you're starting him over all those guys, just to be clear, both of you?
I think if the news breaks overnight, overnight tonight that Kyler's for sure in, that gives me a little bit, I feel a little bit better about it. Mm-hmm. But I actually would start Daniel Jones and Trevor Lawrence over him in this exact matchup, especially if Stafford's not playing. So that's just kind of my take on it.
Yeah, okay. John hit the nail on the head. Like when Kyler's limited and he can't rush, he sucks. There's no other way to say it.
We saw that big time last year. If you go back and look at the numbers from 2021, there was an enormous split between the first half of the season when he was healthy. He was lighting the league on fire.
To his defense, Hopkins
got hurt, but so did Kyler, and he wasn't running as well. And there was just such a steep decline to like that kind of mid to back end, almost quarterback 2 territory for the second half of the year. So that's what you get with Kyler sometimes. Just know the risks going into it. Tommy Donut's writing in from YouTube, and I should mention here that in addition to being a call-in show, 618 Fanline, you could also comment wherever you're watching us live right now, and we will see it here on our stream and do our best to answer your question that way if you prefer. Tommy wants to know, who should you have on your team to trade for to have for the rest of the season? Pretty much you're my guys for the home stretch. So who are we trying to get our hands on for the second half of the year? I assume maybe you're looking ahead to a playoff run. Who are you trying to maybe buy low right now while you still can?
I mean, wish you asked me a couple weeks ago because I would have told you either Etienne or Stevenson for those big breakouts. 2 guys I was really high on.
Fortunately, you did mention them on the show a few weeks ago. You definitely talked up buying Etienne low because I remember saying that I went and looked to go do that in our league, and you were his manager, so I could not buy him low.
Have both of them in our league with Barkley. I'm sitting pretty.
Not bad, kid. Is there anybody out there still?
Yeah, you're not really going to get a top 12 back from a manager now. I said last week I really like Deontay Johnson second half of the year, especially with Claypool gone. I think that touchdown production needs to go up. We know he's a talented guy. So if you could get him for a low price, like he's a guy I'd probably want for that second half. Him or Pickens, actually. Like something's got to give. One of those guys has to do something. Or Kenny Pickett. They're on the, they're coming out of the bye week, so this might be the time to do it before they play that first game. You see,
Claypool's gone. We've seen some chemistry between Pickens and Pickett. In earlier weeks of the season. So that might not be a bad name to circle. You could probably get him for dirt cheap right now. I mean, he's on waivers. Well, he was on waivers in a couple of my leagues. I grabbed him for that exact reason. John, any obvious names that come to mind for you?
One name that kind of, I don't know why I thought of it, but Michael Carter, simply because if somebody who has a losing record kind of needs a bump this week, doesn't want to eat his bye. I mean, Carter looked great. I mean, the Jets defense, I had some questions about it. Like, they were playing against some backup quarterbacks. I think last week they proved they're for real, and if they're going to make the playoffs, I still think Carter is the more explosive and actually he's kind of better runner right now than James Robinson. I mean, he looked good last week. I know he had a pretty good game, so maybe you got to pay a little bit higher price than you would have. But I don't know. I do like Carter as a 1A in that backfield with the Jets. Good defense, allowing them to keep running the ball.
Fair enough.
I agree.
Yeah, maybe not the sexiest option right now, but that's where the value lies, man. That's where you get the discounts. This is a hard time of the season to buy low because I feel like a couple of weeks ago was really the time when people were really looking to make moves to keep themselves in playoff contention if they needed win nows. I feel like a lot of people right now who are coming into the week with like 2-7 records are not even going to be entertaining offers at this point.
You have to make that trade today, too. Like, most leagues trade deadlines, and after...
Sanch, I think we might have just lost you there for a second, but I assume the second half of your sentence was going to be really wise and insightful.
You hear me? You hear me?
Yeah, you're back. You're a little grainy, but you're back.
You have to make the trades today because the trade deadline in a lot of leagues are after these games.
You're right. That really snuck up on us. So a very timely question, Tommy Donuts. I think that I'd probably still try and take a stab at some of those Buccaneers receivers. I like their schedule moving forward, and I still feel like they figure out that passing game eventually, and this is probably the cheapest you'll be able to get them if that happens. So good luck to you, Tommy. We have another question coming in from YouTube from Sarab Agash. Afternoon, gentlemen. Afternoon. In a standard league, would you start Courtland Sutton or Deontay Johnson this week? Courtland Sutton has been borderline useless the last few weeks. We just talked up Deontay Johnson as a potential buy low candidate moving forward. What do you think of him this week? I'm going to bring up the matchups. The Broncos have the Titans and the Steelers have the Saints, both 1:00 games. John, which way are you leaning here?
Actually, I agree with Sanch that I think the Steelers get right. I mean, at least respectable on offense. Kenny Pickett, little post-bye rookie bump. And Deontay Johnson has been getting the targets. He's had some really close calls for touchdowns. And like you said, the positive regression is coming. Give me the guy that's getting more targets. And, I mean, Sutton, it just brings me pain just to think that I would have to roll him out there so he could go 2 catches for 34 yards.
Yeah, that's what he does as of late. That is the new Courtland Sutton on this new Broncos offense. Sanch, are you in agreement here?
Yeah, it's an easy one for me. I do not want to put Courtland Sutton in any of my starting roster slots until, he proves to me he can do something. And I just told you how I'm high on Deontay Johnson moving forward, so that's a fairly easy one here.
Yeah, Sutton, I mean, I like the matchup against the Titans, but Sutton has only cracked 5 targets once in the past 3 weeks. 4 weeks, including the bye. But I think it's unanimous here. Deontay is probably the higher floor and potentially the higher ceiling. So it's Deontay for me until Courtland Sutton proves otherwise. And he follows up here. Also, how about them first place Devils? How about them, Sanchi?
Going for 9 straight today, man.
So Rob, if you're at the game tonight, let us know, and maybe you can find Sanchi, hang out a little bit. So, all
Section
great questions.
16.
Thank you all for tuning in, for writing in these questions. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. And we have a website, fantasyfanline.com. where you can find our schedule of upcoming guests as well as our mailbag if you can't join us to write in questions during the show. We did have some people write into our mailbag this week. We're going to take a look at some of those questions if it's all right with you two gentlemen.
Let's rock.
Kyle in Pennsylvania, asking the important questions here, wants to know Cole Kmet or Tyler Higbee in half PPR this week. My goodness, a tale of opposing trends, if there ever was one. Both great matchups. Kmet has the Lions this week. Higbee is going against the Cardinals. So, where's the truth here? Higbee. Just to kind of paint the picture here, set this up. Tyler Higbee led the league in tight end targets through the first 5 weeks. He averaged 9.6 targets per game. He has seen 9 total in the last 3 games since then. So is it a change in game plan? Is it intentional? Is it a product of the matchups? You kind of have to pay attention to those trends when they're the most recent trends, even though it's the minority of the season. Cole Kmet, meanwhile, coming off a season-high 6 targets, which is not a ton, but he caught 5 of them for 41 yards and 2 touchdowns last week. So, the Bears offense on the upswing as its defense is simultaneously on the downswing, a little bit faster, unfortunately, but that means they're going to have to keep putting up points. They have a new weapon in town in Chase Claypool, so I don't know how much they're going to have to lean on Kmet, but let me, with those kind of qualifying factors in mind, John, what do you think of the situation here?
Yeah, I hate to go just full recency bias, but like you said, 9 total targets for Higbee in the last 3 games. The Rams actually have failed to even reach the red zone or get a first down. 42% of their drives, that's the highest in the league. And wow. Kmet, he has 3 touchdowns on the season. Like, if you have a tight end that can score twice in a game, Higbee has 0 the whole year. So if you have a tight end that could potentially even score twice in a game and get those designed red zone plays, you have to go with Kmet here, really.
It's a very, very different usage. They have very different roles in their respective offenses. Cole Kmet and the Bears tight ends have always been red zone weapons. Higbee was more of a possession receiver through the first half of the season, right? He was playing that Allen Robinson role that we all tried to draft Robinson for. Not we, I didn't draft him, but figuratively, the fantasy football community got out of Tyler Higbee what they thought they were getting from Allen Robinson. And now Tyler Higbee appears to have reverted to previous years' Tyler Higbee, where he just maybe gets a few catches between the 20s each week, which is alarming. Cole Kmet at least is one of those guys who, if he doesn't catch a touchdown, he probably kills you. But I'm going to bet on him catching a touchdown over Tyler Higbee in this situation. Sanch, what do you think?
Yeah, another easy one for me. I'm riding the hot hand. Fields has been amazing. We're going to keep that. We're going to roll that offense. Let that offense keep rolling until it slows down, right? Especially with Stafford's with the concussion and his status being in question. I believe the over-under on the game is 48.5. So I'll take those chances at Kmet getting in over Higbee as well. Higbee last few weeks hasn't done anything, right? He's been pretty bad.
Correct. It feels like a fever dream to me that at this point in the season we're talking about the Bears offense rolling and trying to hitch our wagons to that train. I don't know if that's the right metaphor. Over the Super Bowl champions Rams. It's insane, especially after how the year started with the Bears offense. But yeah, they're on the rise. I don't know if that's going to equate to winning any games the rest of the way, maybe this week against the Lions, but it's sure going to be fun to watch in the meantime. So it is unanimous here. As long as the fantasy
points are there, right? As long as the fantasy points are there.
Keep them coming, Fields.
For me.
Yeah. Steve in Florida says, should I start Juju over Deebo? 2 of the best first names in the NFL going head-to-head here. Let me bring up the matchups here. The Chiefs and Juju have the Jaguars. The 49ers had that aforementioned matchup against the Chargers that we talked about a little earlier. John, who do you like here?
So I want to give Sanch some credit because last time I was on, I hammered Deebo, basically was telling him about near droppable, but he's played extremely well. So I was on the wrong side of that for sure.
You mean Juju, right?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Juju, absolutely. Not Deebo. But what I was going to say is Deebo still has 90 yards or a touchdown in 4 of his 6 healthy games. And while Juju has got 8 targets or more in 6 of his 9 games, there's not many scenarios where I'm going to bench Deebo, especially in a game where their team total is about 27 and a half. So I'm still rolling with Deebo here, just being more involved in the offense. But Juju has turned things around to a point that really has kind of shocked me.
Yeah, it's an interesting comparison here. Debo is the wide receiver 16 in points per game if you take out the games that he missed. Juju is the wide receiver 26 in points per game, but over the last 3 weeks, wide receiver 14. So borderline wide receiver 1, while Debo has been absent due to injury and the bye week. So, again, speaking to recency bias, people are looking at Juju right now as the hot hand. Debo hasn't been around for a minute. What have you done for me lately? Nothing. That being said, Debo's still seeing a 23% target share, which is kind of what we expected with Jimmy Garoppolo. His average depth of target has really plummeted since last year. So he's getting a lot of that short, intermediate, and the stuff out of the backfield, which hasn't led to like amazing fantasy production, but he's been consistent. He's a usable wide receiver too, week to week at worst. That hasn't been the case for Juju for most of the year. But the last few weeks, his usage has been really great. He's producing accordingly. Sanch, I know you're a big Juju guy. Are you a big enough Juju guy to start him over Devo Samuel this week?
I don't think so, man. I love Juju. I want to say put Juju in, but Debo's that, even if he's been slow, he's had his bad weeks. He's the guy who can just break out for 3 touchdowns in this game, and like you're gonna be real pissed off if you bench Debo Samuel and he goes off. If you bench Juju and he goes off, you'll be way less pissed. So
you could sleep at night.
Yeah, I think you have to play Debo Samuel.
Does anyone have an eye on Kadarius Toney going to the Chiefs? Do we know if he's expected to be more integrated this week, or is there a chance we could start to see that usage drop off for Juju?
I'm not necessarily worried about it.
Offense. Sorry, man.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I was just going to say McCole Hardman is banged up, and Marquez Valdes-Scantling, got 1 target on like 60-some routes. It was like the lowest route targets per route run in like 17 years or something crazy for a receiver. So I think if with Hardman's banged up, you're going to see Toney kind of fast-tracked into a bigger role. I don't think it's going to eat into Juju necessarily, though.
All right. Well, I am... with a tight clench, I am going to break the unanimous consensus here, and I'm going to start Juju over Devo, which feels insane. This is mostly the matchup here is a tiebreaker for me. I'm not going to put as much weight into the trends just because Devo hasn't been around, and it's easy to forget how good he is when he hasn't been on the field in 3 weeks. But like I said, I think the 49ers are going to run on the Chargers, or they're going to try to. And, conversely, the Jaguars are surrendering the 5th most yards after catch. They're first in missed tackles. And I think that if Juju sees the usage that he's been seeing the last few weeks, he's going to have every opportunity to just run wild on that Jaguars defense. So I am going to roll the dice in this situation on Juju Smith-Schuster, but I am happy to be in the minority here. And, Sanch, I almost changed my mind when you brought up the fact that how can you sleep at night if you bench Devo and he goes off, because that is real, man. The emotional component of this game is a real factor, and I'm going to feel real bad losing with Devo on my bench. But I'm going to play the odds game here a little bit. I'm going to recommend Juju, but I am outnumbered here.
It's fair. Juju's been balling.
He's been balling. I don't think... All this to say that you're not crazy for starting Juju. I think it's closer than it might appear just based on name value for maybe those of us who haven't been paying attention to Juju's recent production. I think this is 831 Peanuts is writing in from YouTube. Wants to know Raiders D versus Colts, Jeff Saturday, new OC, Ellinger, etc., or Broncos D minus Chubb at Tennessee.
Raiders D is so bad.
They are, but so is the Colts offense.
And
the organization
Denver.
Yeah, that organization as a whole is in turmoil right now. For those of you who haven't been following the Jeff Saturday hire and all that controversy and stuff, it's very entertaining. I'm excited to see how it plays out. But traditionally, mid-season coaching changes do not bode well for the cohesiveness of the team and the way that it runs, especially on a football field during a game. So if ever there was a week for that team to be in more havoc than they're usually in, it would be this week. And I don't hate the Raiders defense play. John, who are you giving the edge to here?
I'm still going to side with the Broncos, and mainly because I think Saturday comes in, just pounds Jonathan Taylor 30 times and says, sees if the Raiders D can hold up. We don't mind higher scoring games when starting a team defense, and neither of these games will be high scoring. But I just think I'm actually on the Broncos this week, coming off a bye. I could see their defense shutting down the run as much as you can versus Derrick Henry and creating some turnovers.
They're going to stack.
You know, they're still one of the top 5 defenses in the league right now, and the Raiders are probably near the bottom 5. So still going to lean the Broncos here.
So therein lies the problem: is when you're trying to weigh a fantasy football defense for a start and separate it from the real life defensive aspect. Do I expect the Colts to come in on offense and have a good game, even against a weak Raiders defense? No, probably not. But do I expect explosive plays from the Raiders defense? Do I expect turnovers? Do I expect the Colts to not take care of the ball? No, probably not. So, that might end up being a, I don't know, 18-12 game, 18-14, 18-7, but you could still come away with a Raiders fantasy defense that puts up like 5-6 points, and that's not really the upside that you're looking for when you're starting a fantasy defense. Broncos defense can create turnovers, take the ball away, they can sack the quarterback, and I just don't really see that happening in a probably low-scoring and uneventful game between the Raiders and the Colts. So it is unanimous here for the Broncos. Even though the Titans offense scares me a lot more than the Colts offense does at this point, I'm hitching my wagon to the Broncos defense.
It's just Derrick Henry for me. Like Willis, I don't think did he get a ball to any wide receiver on that game against Kansas City, or was it only tight ends? It was rough to watch. Like all they were like. So. Derrick Henry was just carrying that team that game.
Literally, and there was a stretch where he ran the ball, I think 1,000 times in a row, but
they kept pulling him out of the game.
That's something I feel like you can get away, because they're both going to run the ball a ton this week, right? Tennessee and the Colts.
For sure.
The difference is I think you can get away with that against the Raiders, and the Broncos defense, if they stack the box and force, Malik Willis to beat them, he's not going to be able to. So, there's a
pick six. I could see a pick six coming.
Bigger pathway for big plays, I think, from the Broncos this week. But it's a good question. If you don't have an option as good as the Broncos, I don't mind taking a dart throw at the Raiders this week.
Speaking of Jeff Saturday, the Colts are definitely in full-blown tank mode. He has one coaching stint under his resume. He was a high school coach, and he had a losing record. So if you want that information to help your decision, you got it.
I can't remember a less qualified hire at a coaching position. You can make an argument for Cliff Kingsbury, but even so, I feel like he had the record until this week. Here we are, Jeff Saturday. Stephen A. Smith is going to be next. Angela in Massachusetts wants to know, is it time to start Jamal Williams over DeAndre Swift? I think I just saw Sanch die inside at this question. He was a my guy for Sanch coming into the year. DeAndre Swift was. They have the Bears this week. Is a great matchup. I think start either of them if you have them. But if you have both, are you starting both? If not, which one? Start with Sanch here.
I'm not mad with starting both, depending on your other options. If you're like a little weaker, why not start both? You probably should start Jamal Williams over Swift. If you asked me personally, hell no. I am going down with the ship, man. I still believe in Swift. I just hope he can get healthy and get right and get you those big games the second half of the year. And I do think they're coming. It's really rough every week to plug Swift in and just watch his production. It sucks. But Swift's my guy. I'm going down with the ship. So anyone else would probably say yes, but I'm still playing Swift.
Well, let's test your thesis there. John, are you going to say yes?
So I'm going to be stubborn too, and I'm going to agree to start Swift. So
all right.
Jamal Williams only averaging 7.5 PPR points when he doesn't score a touchdown. And Swift, when he came back, got 33 snaps to Jamal Williams 22. It was really only last week where Swift was completely limited. And of course that can happen. But if I've sat on Swift this whole time in this high scoring game, and I'm in a PPR league, going down with the ship, I'm rolling out Swift one more time, and that's just how I'm going. So
it's like Debo. You don't want Swift to have a 30-something points on the bench.
I respect that, but our goal in fantasy football is to not go down at all. You guys can go down with the fiddles on the Titanic, but I'm gonna. I usually write down an answer in advance which way I'm gonna go, and this one I was like, I'm gonna feel it out kind of as I answer this question. So after logging 7 carries over the last 2 games, I have in my notes here that DeAndre Swift is now off the injury report as of yesterday. So no injury designation coming into the weekend. That's a good sign, even though he was limited in practice on Thursday, which makes me a little queasy. Williams, we know, has gotten an expanded workload with Swift out and with Swift limited even on the field the last 2 weeks. He looks great. I mean, it's not just the stats. He looks like a good runner. And we mentioned on the show last week that he's really kind of been everything that we hoped A.J. Dillon would be this year as the number 2 running back with a high workload on a high-scoring offense, just like we all expected, the Detroit Lions, the new Packers. Williams has 3 top 12 finishes on the year, 5 top 24 finishes, and is the current running back 13. That's crazy. DeAndre Swift has 2 top 5 finishes total, but they were weeks 1 and 2 when he looked like the steal of the draft.
What could have been? What could have been?
So to me, it feels like even if Swift is 100%, Jamal Williams has done enough to earn himself a role moving forward, regardless of Swift's health. He's not going to go away. I think he'll be a standalone kind of flex option regardless, at least. Whereas DeAndre Swift could disappear depending on his health. I mean, I like the fact that he's off the injury report. Oh man, this is tough. You guys have already gone Swift. I'm probably also going to go Swift, all things considered.
I was about to bet you a 6-pack once you said Williams.
You know what? I'm going to take the bet. Let's do it, man.
Let's do it.
Williams versus Swift this week for a 6-pack.
Our league scoring.
Okay. What is that? Full PPR.
Bonus points for 100-yard games, all that jazz.
Okay, so here's my reason. I'm not doing it just for the 6-pack. The more I think about it, I feel like Jamal Williams, regardless of Swift, is going to at least be flex worthy. And if Swift is on a pitch count, he's going to be great. Swift, I feel like the range of outcomes is either he's going to smash or he's going to goose. Not goose. He's going to get a couple of touches. But I like Williams' floor, and we've seen the ceiling for him. So this is probably the last week where I'm going to say Williams over Swift. If Swift comes out and he sees a normal snap count, normal usage moving forward, this question can't be asked anymore. Even if Williams outscores Swift, if they're both on the field in their regular roles and Williams happens to fall into the end zone, you're going to buy me a 6-pack, but I'm going to play Swift over him moving forward. So that, I think, is the way to approach this question.
Come on, DeAndre. I'm thirsty.
Just a reminder, we are live for the next 25 minutes or so. Our phone line is open, 618 Fanline. If you want to pick up a phone, join us on the air, shoot the breeze with us, talk some fantasy football. That's what we're here to do with y'all today. In the meantime, we'll keep rolling through this mailbag. Pedro, North Carolina, wants to know, in a full PPR league, Flex 1, Latavius Murray, A.J. Dillon, Chase Claypool. Pedro, do we have to? I don't entirely hate these options. Let me bring up the matchups here.
It goes back to my Bears argument with the hot hand and the higher over under. I'm probably gonna play Claypool over these 2 guys.
These jabronis.
It's not great, but ride that hot hand with Fields.
That's where I'm going to land as well. Let me show my math first. Let me show my work. So the Broncos and Latavius Murray are against the Titans, who are surprisingly tough run defense despite giving up all the yards in the world through the air. A.J. Dillon and the 3-6 Green Bay Packers are going against the Cowboys this week, another tough run defense. No way that they're 3-6?
No way
that you're playing them.
No way I'm playing them against Dallas's defense.
Okay.
Ugh.
So A.J. Dillon, we just talked about Jamal Williams, who has been what we wanted Dillon to be. And conversely, Dillon has not been what we wanted Dillon to be. He's got 1 finish inside the top 24 running backs this entire year. And it was week 1 when he was the running back 10. Haven't seen anything like that again. He only cracked the top 30 once since then. So he's borderline droppable at this point.
He's a bust.
Yeah. Aaron Jones tweaked his ankle last week in the game and he left early, which raised my eyebrow a little bit, but he's good to go as far as my research has seen. So you've got 2 healthy running backs on a bad Packers offense, which just brings me so much joy to say, against a good Cowboys run defense. He's out. So for me, this is between Latavius and Chase Claypool. Murray's averaging about 14 carries per game and has 2 touchdowns in his 3 games with the Broncos so far. So pretty good. But like I said, Titans are a tough run defense, and I don't yet trust Murray to the point where I'm going to rule out that they just go back and lean on Melvin Gordon any given week. I don't really feel like that has been clearly established, especially with some of the things the coaching staff has come out and said that Gordon is still the guy, even though their actions aren't really showing it. Chase Claypool, first game with the Bears, saw 6 targets and a carry on 35% of snaps. So, in a limited usage, he's still got a lot of opportunities, and his role is only going to increase from here in a great matchup against a bad Lions defense. So I'm going to roll the dice here on Claypool. John, cast your vote.
Yeah, I'll keep it short. Absolutely. Chase Claypool. I always lean wide receiver in full PPR in these close decisions. Yep. Like you said, 27 opportunities on 26 snaps and drew a deep pass interference down the field. They're obviously force beating the guy they just traded a second-round pick for.
Should have drawn 2 deep pass interferences, by the way.
Yeah,
that was
I agree.
Outrageous.
Those refs really don't like the Bears, huh?
It's felt like that my whole life, and I feel like at least once per week I'm like, that's the worst missed call I've ever seen against the Bears. But then next week it happens again. So at this point I'm just like, am I just like finding ways to cope? But then I go on Twitter and I feel like the community is with me.
Last week was bad.
All right.
2 blown calls.
Sorry, John, not to cut you off. Yeah, I liked what I saw out of the way that they're trying to use Claypool last week. I don't know if they were just kind of making a statement like, yes, we know we paid a lot, but we're going to use him enough to make up for it. So whether it's a self-fulfilling prophecy of him being really involved in the action because they paid a lot, or they paid a lot because they knew they were going to involve him that much, doesn't really matter. I think he's going to get a lot of opportunities in a suddenly efficient offense. I don't know if efficient is the right word, but they're making up for the amount of points that their defense is giving up. So Angelo, New Jersey, wants to know if he should start Chris Moore or Michael Gallup this week in a half-point PPR league. Chris Moore, for those of you who don't know, is a wide receiver on the Texans. I don't know how many people follow that team outside of their own market, but that's where he plays. They have the Giants this week, and the Cowboys and Michael Gallup, again, go against the 3-6 Green Bay Packers. John, why don't you start this one off?
Pretty easy for me. Chris Moore's playing time is not guaranteed. Nico Collins, for sure Cooks is playing. Nico Collins, I think, is questionable. Gallup had a season high in targets and yards. Now they get the bye week. 100% going with Gallup here.
Is Cooks really definitely back? Because this answer is really dependent on the health of that team. Okay, because I saw that he was questionable with a supposed wrist injury. I think it had more to do with his relationship issues with his front office on his team.
Actually, says murky outlook on Sleeper.
Okay.
About his usage, but Nico Collins is trending towards playing. Dak likes Michael Gallup, and it was obviously gonna take some time for Gallup to get rolling again, but he has Dak's trust, and I think he's one of those guys. If he's on waivers, like Tommy Donuts asked before, like why not put Michael Gallup on your bench or try to get a cheap little deal from him? Because I heard the Cowboys were trying to get another receiver at the trade deadline, talks of OBJ maybe coming over there, but the chemistry's there with Dak and Gallup. Obviously,
Sanj, that is an incredible call for a potential buy low for the relative upside of Michael Gallup if he's anything like what he was in years past in terms of his chemistry with Dak Prescott. I love that answer. I hope
you knew he wasn't going to come.
Yeah, I hope he's still listening.
Come back. You knew he wasn't going to come back and go crazy right away after that huge injury, but sometimes it takes a few weeks. The chemistry's there, and
in fairness to this question, Gallup has been genuinely awful for fantasy football purposes. It's not like he's it was a slow start. He has 1 wide receiver 3 finish in the last 5 weeks since he came back, and that was a wide receiver 35 week. So he just kind of snuck in to that top 36. He hasn't cracked 50 yards or 5 catches yet in a game, and he has 1 touchdown, and it was in that wide receiver 35 week. So
it just takes 1 or 2 weeks before he's on the top of everyone's waiver pickup shows, His metrics have also been surprisingly bad. He's got a 63 PFF receiving grade right now, which is not great, and he's averaging 1.13 yards per route run. All of that being said, I am still starting him over Chris Moore unless for some reason we find out that Cooks is a surprise inactive and Nico Collins is out, because if you've just been looking at Chris Moore's recent fantasy points, they had no one else.
They've been okay. He's got 9 targets over the last 2 weeks and a touchdown in each game, but you really need to put it into the context of Nico Collins missing both weeks. Cooks was out last week, so if neither of them are going against the Giants, Chris Moore is going to be a necessary part of that offense. But if one or both of them go, it's Gallup for me, and I'm holding my nose, but I'm hoping that this is the week that he returns to form.
And just to clarify, I'm not calling my shot that Michael Gallup's a league winner by any means, but I'm just saying he's like, why not stash him on the bench or try to get him for a cheap deal before the trade deadline ends? Because you have seen him get it done with Dak.
Yeah, he's not
down the stretch.
He's not a win now pickup, but if you have a good record and you're looking ahead to playoffs and you're weak at wide receiver and you need a lottery ticket, probably not going to find a better one than Michael Gallup for the price.
There's definitely worse guys you can play if you have the bye week blues for sure.
All right, my favorite question of the week. My man Don in New York wants to know if we would rather have Justin Fields, my guy Justin Fields, or Justin Herbert rest of season at the quarterback position. Here we are,
crazy.
week 10, asking this question. John, I'm going to let you start before I color this with my biased perspective.
I don't think you're going to have a bias. So average intended air yards per attempt, Justin Herbert, 5th worst in the league, sandwiched between names Daniel Jones, Baker Mayfield, Kirk Cousins, and Davis Mills. For quarterbacks with 180 attempts, by the same stat, average air yards attended, Justin Fields is 3rd highest in the league, averaging 9.2 yards. Really, there's 5 elite fantasy QBs moving forward, especially in 4-point TD pass league. I'm going to count Josh Allen because assuming he's healthy, and then it's Tua, Jalen Hurts, Mahomes, and Justin Fields. Those are the top 5 QBs moving forward. So, I mean, clearly to me, especially without Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, I mean, I'm starting Fields, no question, over Justin Herbert. Crazy as it sounds, that last time I was on the show, you couldn't have paid me to pick up Justin Fields, and now I have him as one of my 5 elite QBs.
A lot has changed in the past month. He's QB 7 on the season right now. The QB 1 overall since week 5, Justin Fields is. Herbert is currently QB 14. Sanch, give us your take on this before I take my victory lap here.
Give me the guy who just had 178 rushing yards, man.
Yeah,
come on,
buddy.
That was insane. I mean, I love Herbert. I was big on him before the year, but, I didn't expect Keenan Allen to miss the whole year. Now Mike Williams is questionable. Like, he's out for like 4 weeks, they're saying. It's Justin Fields, man. We talk about it, those quarterbacks with legs are fantasy gold, and all I needed to see was last week against Miami. He's obviously not going to be in the 40s as far as points every week, but you feel good about rolling Fields moving forward, especially now that the Bears, they're using them to his strengths. These design runs. Imagine if they did that starting week 1.
Oh.
Yeah.
Look, it's hard to get past the name value sometimes, and I think for that reason, if you are the Herbert manager and you can sell him for Fields plus another piece, just again because of the draft capital and the name value, I'm doing that in a heartbeat. If it's straight up, I'm playing to win, I'm taking Fields in a 1-to-1 challenge there. And Sanch, to your point, like, you need to be a prolific pocket passer in fantasy to compete with those higher end rushing quarterbacks. There's usually like a handful of them. Herbert was one of them last year, but he's not this year. It's Patrick Mahomes for sure. And I think he's the only kind of guarantee from that usual group of guys who are in there. You can make a case for Burrow probably, right? Maybe Tua, but no more Tom Brady, no more Aaron Rodgers. It's the year of the elite rushing quarterback. You have Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, usually Kyler Murray, and Justin freaking Fields has arrived in that tier of rushing quarterbacks. And I'm thrilled for him. I'm thrilled for my fellow Bears fans who have not had anything that's exciting to cling to in fantasy football or real football for a long time. But yeah, I'm taking Fields here. And I think I've gloated enough. I'm going to switch us over to a YouTube question coming from Tommy Donuts, who is still listening. Tommy, thanks for sticking around. I hope you listened to Sanch's recent addition to the buy low candidates in Michael Gallup. But he wants to know if he should start Dawson Knox or Foster Moreau this week at the tight end position.
Is there anyone else on waivers, man? Because that's Dawson Knox is touchdown dependent, and Allen's probably not going to play. And then I'd probably play Foster Moreau because it's gross. Check your waiver wire.
Knox has the Vikings.
Anyone else?
Moreau has the Colts. So I think for sure you can't start Knox if Josh Allen sits. If he starts, I'm probably.
It's hard to play him when he plays. He's so touchdown dependent.
John, are you trying either of these options? Is there anyone out there that you would recommend who's commonly available that you prefer to play?
I mean, I don't hate Moreau's spot exactly this week simply because Colts play a lot of zone. No Darren Waller, no Hunter Renfrow. If you're in a full PPR league and Moreau gets you 5 for 55, you're like, all right, move on to the next week. But
sure.
Dawson Knox, I mean, that red zone, he's a red zone specialist, and really without Josh Allen, we're not guaranteed those red zone attempts. I lean Moreau ever so slightly.
If Allen sits, what's that?
Yeah, that's true.
Oh my God, you're right.
Keenum and Diggs have some chemistry. We forget about that.
That is must-see television.
Yeah, we'll see.
So if Josh Allen sits, you're probably not touching Dawson Knox. So then you're looking at Foster Moreau. Let me read a couple of other commonly kind of available tight end options.
Evan
and you guys
Ingram.
can let me know. Moreau or Ingram. That's a good one. Sanch, taking Ingram.
In that Chiefs matchup, I'm playing Ingram over both these guys.
I would play Ingram as well.
Okay. What about Cade Otton on the Bucks going against the Seahawks? I think.
What's his name back to?
I heard that Cameron Brate was coming back this week.
Probably
sticking with Moreau.
Yeah, me too.
Last one, Jawan Johnson on the Saints against the Steelers.
He did score. Shout out to Aaron Larson for that call from our last show.
Week's guest. Yep, he called it.
So
you feeling lucky 2 weeks in a row?
I don't know.
I would not feel lucky. I would stick with Moreau. I guess I'm a sucker for a little bit more guaranteed playing time and more targets. Yeah. I think Moreau will be involved. Yeah.
Okay. So Tommy Donuts, your game plan here is if Allen starts, you're probably rolling out Knox. If he sits, which we expect, you're going Moreau unless you can get Evan Ingram. And that's pretty much it. Good luck to you. Barry in New Jersey writes into our mailbag, who is the running back one in Miami on the Dolphins? Sanch, do you know?
Who cares? I don't want
All
any
right.
of them.
John, thoughts?
Yeah, so, I mean, Jeff Wilson coming in, getting 28 snaps, 9 carries, 3 targets. Mostert, 27 snaps, 9 carries, 2 targets. But that was the first game. I think McDaniel's plan is make sure Mostert is healthy for the playoffs. So if you're telling me who I want the rest of the regular season, it's Jeff Wilson because he can take the pounding, he's familiar with the system. He got 50% of the work off the, 5 days into the Dolphins system. So
yeah, I agree. I want Wilson too for fantasy purposes.
I mean, they're both familiar with that system. They both played with him in the past. But yeah, Wilson came right in, saw 9 carries and 51 yards, 3 targets for 21 and a touchdown. I was really, like you said, the speed at which he was integrated with that offense and immediately split the carries. But he was seeing the more valuable work in the red zone and the passing game. So it's Jeff Wilson for me too. But, to Sanch's point, they're going to see 10 to 15 touches per week on a high-powered offense, so that's good.
Yeah.
But
you're not excited about starting either one.
Yeah. I see Wilson kind of as a back-end running back too, especially in PPR. Mostert's going to be more of a flex, and he might surge later in the season. To John's point, if they're looking to kind of lean on him as the year gets late. Neither of those guys have a history of being particularly healthy. Maybe now that they're out of San Francisco, they're not going to be as injury prone. I think it's just something in the air over there, right, in the running back room for the 49ers. So
we're praying for you, CMC. We're praying for you. Oh, my
God, I know. Deshaun in Minnesota, do you prefer title belts or trophies? This is a great question.
This is your preference, man. If you have
he wants to know what we think personally.
Well, we have a lot of wrestling nerds in our league, so obviously we want that gold strap. But
that was the first note I had in my notes was if you're a wrestling fan, it's hard to not pick championship belts. Is that your preference personally, Sanch?
Yeah, I'm leading that title belt, and I'm coming for it this year too.
Have you held a title belt in any of your leagues, like an actual physical belt?
As far as winning one?
Yeah.
No. It's coming this year, though.
Okay, and that would be more triumphant for you than hoisting a trophy or...
I already had... Yeah, I've hoisted trophies. I want the feeling of, I feel like Shawn Michaels or something. Coming into my draft, like Triple H, spitting water on everyone. Time to play the game. Oh, yeah.
I don't know if that's as acceptable of an entrance in the post-COVID era, now that we're all very germ aware and conscious and things, people spitting water on other people, probably hasn't aged well. But the rest of it sounds great. John, which way are you going here? Very important question.
Anytime I can link wrestling to fantasy football, you just have to do it. But let me just throw out an idea. So in my league, I don't want to talk about my league very much, but we pay 20% of the purse, and we give a world title belt to the points champion, weeks 1 through 17.
Oh.
No matter how the playoffs play out, the points champion, he's the world heavyweight champion. He gets the belt, and then the actual league champion gets a trophy. So just throwing that idea out there for other leagues, maybe to copy.
I like that. Now, is that a belt? Is that a belt that passes ownership year to year, or is that a fresh belt each year?
No, it's passes from year to year.
Okay, yeah, I think that's the way to go with belts. With trophies, I think you can go either way. I think you can have one big like Stanley Cup-ish trophy that you kind of pass from person to person. This is also kind of dependent on the location of your league mates. I play in leagues where we all grew up in the same area and have moved apart over the years. And I play in some leagues with people I've never met in person. And in those cases, it's
you ship
tough.
That out, man. You ship that out.
You could do that. One of our leagues that we play in, the last place finisher has to pay to buy like a $25 trophy, this big. And I have a nice shelf full of those little trophies over there. I could see it. I work from home now in my basement, so anytime I want during the day, I just look over, remind myself how good I am at fantasy football. So I think trophies have reigned supreme in the pandemic era because the belt, really the utility of it is you can leave your house wearing it in front of your friends and really flex on them. But when nobody was going anywhere for the last few years, you're doing all that flexing for yourself at home. I mean, you could wear it on like work calls, like if you're on like a Zoom call. You can cut a promo. Oh, that's true. That's a great point. You can record yourself and drop it in like your league chat. Oh, I think you just won me back over to belts. I was going to say that trophies emerged during COVID, but I'm coming over to title belts, man. It is invaluable to be able to cut a trophy with a championship belt and smack talk your opponents. That's the right answer. I'm convinced. You did it, Sanch.
Gosh, you.
Last question to wrap things up here in the final minutes. This one comes in from I'm Scared in New Jersey. Wants to know they should start David Montgomery or James Conner at running back too. That is an appropriate name, my friend, because Jesus. John, which poison are you picking here?
James Conner has one TD back in week number 1, has an eclipse 55 yards rushing. Cody Ford, their starting left guard right now, 78th out of 81st PFF ranking. Their starting center, Billy Price, 37th of 38th. DJ Humphreys, their best off lineman left tackle, is questionable. So give me Monty, give me 15 carries a game. Give me the pace of the Bears offense. They're going to be, like Sanch said, a lot of high scoring games. So I'm going David Montgomery still.
All of that information that you just said, that sucks. That is brutal. Sanch, are you in agreement here?
I'm on Monty as well. For everything John said, but I will say, like, when Kyler was banged up and wasn't able to be mobile last year,
they leaned on Conner.
They leaned on Conner a lot. I know it hasn't been great, to say the least, this year, but you can keep that in your mind when you're making that decision. But personally, just looking at it right now, it's David Montgomery for me in a matchup that should have a lot of points. And John already talked about how he loves the under, and I think I'm with him there. And we want to play guys in fantasy with higher over-unders. It's just the basic math. Yeah.
So we've talked about both these matchups a lot on the show. It's the Bears versus the Lions. It's the Cardinals versus the Rams. Both these guys, absolute fantasy, I don't know, mediocrity at best. If you're feeling generous over the course of the season, Montgomery is running back 30 right now. James Conner running back 45. I know they've both missed some time, but still, good Lord. Montgomery has a much better matchup. Like you said, higher over-under. I think they might not be favored to win that matchup, actually. The Lions might be favored. But still, you like the guys who are in those shootouts. The Bears are the highest volume rushing team in football right now. Yes, a lot of that is going to Khalil Herbert and Justin Fields, but Montgomery is still seeing 70% of snaps in the past few games, despite having to hold off both those guys. So, I mean, he's a great runner on a team full of great runners. And any given week, kind of depends who's going to have the big game between the three of them on the ground. This might be a week where all of them do, to be honest. James Conner, I think he's still running well, like physically since he came back from his injury. It's just not translating into anything for fantasy. His role isn't what we hope for on an offense. That isn't what we hope for in itself. But the dream, right, for the Cardinals was for Hopkins and Connor to both come back at the same time and return to the glory that they had been in years past. But we didn't see it last week in a loss against the Seahawks. Probably won't see it this week against a much harder defense in the Rams, especially with Kyler questionable for Call of Duty purposes, probably. So it's David Montgomery here for me.
Hey, Greg, you're not dreaming, man. The Bears are 2.5-point favorites at home.
Is that true?
That is true.
Let's go. So give me the guy on the favored offense in the higher over-under.
Yeah, 8.5
easier.
more points. It's 48.5 on the Bears Lions, and I think it's a 40 flat on the Cardinals and Rams. John said he likes the under. That's what he does. I might tail him.
Okay, there you have it.
Yeah.
So the Lions beat the Packers. Now the Bears are about to beat the Lions. So vicariously, I can almost take that as a win over the Packers. It's the best I can do. Like, it's all I the only thing I can take joy in terms of win-loss records this year is the Packers failing, because the Bears we expected to be 3-6 right now. The Packers, this is just beyond my wildest dreams. So enough flexing on the Green Bay fans here. That's the last of our mailbag questions.
When they play Green Bay again, do they finally get it done? Or does Rodgers just end up looking like his old self like it usually is? When is that game?
My prediction, I don't know. It's circled on my calendar upstairs, my physical calendar, in red ink, but I don't have it memorized. My prediction is the Bears will win that game. And we'll send Rodgers sadly off into retirement. That'll be the last ever Rodgers versus Bears game. He's going to lose. At least this is what I'm going to go to sleep tonight telling myself as I drift off to dreamland.
Week 13 at Soldier Field.
Book it. I might fly out there. John, thanks for coming on the show and indulging my unhealthy feelings towards the Packers and answering all of our listeners' questions. It's been fun, as always. Why don't you take a minute and once again plug all of your channels and all the great work that you're doing for the people out there on Twitter and your respective companies?
Well, one thing I want to tell you, Greg, is take solace in, like, I want to watch a Bears game. It's going to be exciting. You're going to see exciting plays. Like, I have no interest in watching the Packers games right now. So I guess that's kind of a way of something else. So, I'm obviously at the Action Network. I'm still 26-16 against the spread on the season, just under 62%. All my write-ups come out at the Action Network, usually Sunday morning. My best bets in my full write-up this week, I'm writing up Chiefs, Jaguars. I'll just tell you right now, I'm on the Jags plus 9.5 this week, and this is coming from a Chiefs fan. So you should believe what I say about the Chiefs. Obviously, my Fantasy Sharks podcast usually drops Friday. I most of the time go over my picks and my best bets for the week on Fantasy Sharks podcast. If you want to hear me kind of go into deeper reasons why I do like those particular games, but follow me at Johnny L Football on Twitter.
That's a great hit rate, man. Always is. So if you listeners out there want to make yourself some money, go listen to Johnny L Football on Twitter, and you could take some of your proceeds and maybe kick them our way on patreon.com/fantasyfanline, our growing community of supporters, which is now joined by the likes of John LanFranca. If you want to be like Johnny L Football himself, come support us. We're an independent show, and we can use all the support we can get to help keep this show running. And we will be live with another expert guest every Saturday at 2 o'clock Eastern Time for the rest of the season. Subscribe to and stream us on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube, or find us the next day on your favorite podcast platform. You can follow us on all social platforms at Fantasy Fanline. Visit our website, fantasyfanline.com, for a schedule of our upcoming guests and to submit a question to our mailbag if you sadly can't join us live for our show. That's pretty much it, guys. For Sanchi Value, for our expert guest, John LanFranca, I'm Greg Scalera. Sanchi, have any parting words besides Go Devils?
Go Giants.
Go Giants. There you go. I should have seen that coming. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. We will talk to you next week on Fantasy Fanline. Goodbye.